the work of an Iowa-based organization bailing out Benji kind of helped spark this investigation. Can you tell me about that?
That resolution filed in King County Superior Court requires the company to pay the state $3.75 million with interest.
Bailing out Benji regularly looks through these records of dogs' movement from state to state.
Bailing out Benji
played a key part in unraveling a nationwide puppy scheme.
Bailing out Benji,
an organization that's been working across the country to stop the pipeline of puppy mill breeders.
Bailing out Benji.
I will use my voice because it will come out, and I will keep doing it until there are no more puppy mill dogs.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Truth, Lies, and Puppy Mills. We've been covering a lot of issues lately. Puppy mills, of course. Volunteering was our last episode. And this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of nonprofit struggles a little. We talk about fundraising every episode. We've talked to you a little bit about how funding is hard to find when you're a group like ours. We were just at a conference and we realized funding is hard for a lot of groups right now. And so we kind of wanted to dive into the lessons we learned and some of the feelings we walked away with.
For sure. We had the opportunity to be in a room full of nonprofit leaders and many small nonprofits. So it was good to get that perspective and to just collaborate and connect with each other, but also to just kind of support each other and acknowledge that things are hard and we're still okay.
Right. Like we were in a community of people who were all going through the same thing. And I think that made me feel less lonely. I think it made you feel less lonely in this work, like knowing that everyone's kind of stuck at the moment.
For sure. And so this conference we were at, we had some animal welfare organizations, and then we had many other social justice. We had education, like a lot of early childhood education and education initiatives, a lot of youth programs, which I just love. We had some financial folks there. So should we talk a little bit about the animal welfare side and what we learned and experienced, and then later maybe we can shift to just the nonprofit in general? Does that make sense?
Yeah. All of us were kind of sitting at this table to talk about what does the future of breeding look like? What does the current crisis look like? And it was just kind of eye-opening there too. And you didn't really know any of the players at the table, so you just got to observe and take notes.
Yeah, and I knew a couple of names and a couple of just groups that I was familiar with. But yeah, the whole week I was a kid in a candy store, just absorbing as much information as I could. I had an absolute blast, but sitting at that table was. It catapulted, I feel like, my learning so far ahead, just to hear all these different voices. We can talk about it within our walls. We can talk about the experience of shelters and rescues, and we can talk about the experience of veterinarians. We can talk about, other people doing similar work to what we're doing. But to actually get to talk to them and hear their stories was just amazing. And I heard things that I hadn't even considered. It opened up whole new kind of thought processes for me. So it was great, and all just the kindest people to get to spend time with. So yeah, it was good.
Well, there was someone there who I will not name drop because I would never call someone out like that. But they heard that bailing out Benji was coming, and they had like a sick to their stomach reaction. Like, this person felt safe enough in that space to be like, I felt a pit in my stomach when I heard you were coming. But by the end of the conversation, they realized the work we do. And that was, someone who does some work in the breeding community. So they felt like we had been attacking, and they felt like they had to be on the defense at the table. But once we all started communicating, we all realized how much more in common we had. So I was happy to kind of like win them over a little bit and make them realize we're not as scary as we might seem online. Maybe.
Right. And my favorite part of that whole interaction was that person came up to you and said, actually, I am glad you're here because I have this feeling about bailing out Benji and I wanted to talk to you. And that to me was like, oh, how often do we just make assumptions about people and then shut it down. Like, I'm not talking to that person. I'm not going to be in the same room with that person. They have nothing to offer me. And they actually sought us out and said, I want to talk more about this. And then by the end of the conversation, realized, like you said, we're closer together than we are apart. So that was, I loved that open heart, open mind attitude that that individual had, and that you had as well in having that conversation. And that's how it should be. It doesn't have to be this hard. And I feel like that was kind of, in general, all of us sitting around the table. I think it kind of really started to dawn on people midway through the conversation that, like, okay, we are kind of speaking the same language. And it was very refreshing to feel that and to see people feeling that.
And you and I talked afterwards, the conversation at the table, we talked about Amish breeding and Amish breeders, and that is a point of contention. We're going to do a whole episode on that sooner or later, but at Bailing Out Benji, we don't believe in Amish hate. We don't believe that you should target somebody based on their religion, essentially, in their way of life, even though they also happen to be dog breeders. And so sitting at that table, knowing that the last year of our lives we've had to take some heat over our stance, our very public stance about not hating Amish breeders. So sitting at that table, I was a little nervous about where that conversation started going, but then everybody was saying the same things. And everybody, the rescues and the shelters at the table were saying, like, this is my experience. I'm seeing the progress in those communities. And I don't know, it made me feel less alone in that too.
Yeah. And they had stories as well about people in their communities pushing back when they're saying, listen, I've been to that breeder. I have been on their property, and here's what I'm seeing, and it doesn't match your story of what this breeder is about, and the pushback they've gotten from their own community. And really, I think that's what it takes, is people, that firsthand experience, to be able to change minds and to shift that narrative a little bit, to say, not all Amish is not a style of breeding, right? It has nothing to do with how you breed animals. So to your point, why would we take that category of people and say they're all bad or they're all good? I mean, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, every puppy mill is bad. It doesn't matter who is running it.
Right.
Right. And that's the focus we need to be. It's just like the other episode when you said, why does it matter how many puppy mills there are? Like, truly, why does the public need to know exactly how many puppy mills there are when they're buying? Mm-hmm. So it's the same. It's like, why do you have to say what their religion is or what community they're from? You're trying to paint a picture. But yeah, that was just such a refreshing moment, I think, especially after the last year of it seeming like more people were upset at that part of it. But I think it's a small minority. I think as we make these safe spaces for people to have conversations, we're going to really start seeing these dissenting opinions coming out. But we have to build a table that is safe enough for people to start expressing their experiences.
Yeah. And I think as long as, there's a narrative being pushed that says, like, groups like us are in the minority, we're wrong, we have an agenda, we're trying to be manipulative, whatever that narrative that's being expressed is, the more folks that come together that realize we're all on the same page here. Like, what we're saying is not clear out in left field. There are other folks who are experiencing the same things we're experiencing. They just don't feel safe enough to say it out loud at this point. They might have a lot to lose by saying it out loud. But the more we can hear each other's voices and kind of build that courage together and realize we're not the minority, we're not in the wrong here, and shift that narrative that, one or two groups don't get to control the narrative of what's happening here. There's a lot of organizations doing this work and have real lived experience on the ground.
Right. And we also talked a little about how to reach the public. Now, on our Facebook page, we ask people to share, but it is still our volunteers sharing to their friends and family. Like, our reach is so small. So we were brainstorming different ideas on how to reach puppy buyers instead of still trying to build I think that's what the plan has been. We've been building our Adopt Don't Shop base. We've been building the support for the message, but we've all of the organizations have missed out on reaching the public, the actual puppy buyers.
Yeah, and something that's kind of been, nibbling at the back of my brain for a while. And I think I had an aha moment at this conference that since we had animal welfare folks there, but also more people who were not connected to animal welfare. And as you tell them what we do and you talk to them and tell them our stories, they have no idea. And it kind of occurred to me as we were there last week that like this whole industry is talking to itself. It's a lot of people passing around statistics and facts amongst themselves.
Quote unquote facts.
I did the quote. I might have been off camera, but I did the quote. And pointing fingers at who's doing it the wrong way. And a noticeable lack of educating the people who honestly do not, as much as I love Alexis and the research, they don't care about the research. They don't care about Amish, not Amish. Like, they just want a dog and then want to get back to their lives. And they're just really not that invested in the world of dogs. We're not talking to those people. It's so much infighting and just that echo chamber kind of mentality. So yeah, people that I know that work in other industries and want to get a dog for their family, they're not following these animal welfare groups on social media. So you might be talking all day, every day on your social media, but the people who are following you are people who are already interested in the work you're doing. They already know what you're saying. So yeah, that was just reinforces that concept that we really have got to figure out how we get out of these walls and start educating the puppy buying public. And so also what I saw a lot of when I'm looking at kind of this group of people who I hear talking to each other a lot more than talking to, the people outside who we're supposed to be helping, was so if I can get, if I'm being too vulnerable here with your story, you can, cut it out, call me out, whatever. But you have got some trauma built up. You've done this work for 14 plus years. You have got some trauma built up from doing this work. As someone coming in, I would be like, well, of course she has. She is hearing horrible stories of dogs being treated in horrific, inhumane situations. You're seeing the pictures, you're reading the reports, you're tracking these dogs across the country. So much trauma. What sunk into me last week at the conference is, I think probably more of the trauma you're carrying has come from other animal welfare organizations. There's trust issues. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of baggage. And looking around this room at all of these different organizations, there is that trauma from each other. Friendly fire, if you will. There is trauma from the work that we do. A lot of people get into nonprofit work because of their own personal trauma. So we're carrying all of that. And that really just kind of struck me as we were there this week and hearing some really heavy stories and listening to some of these other groups that were at our table, the shelters, the rescues, the people who are literally afraid to speak their truth because of repercussions, not from the government, not from breeders, but from other animal welfare organizations. And that shook me a little bit. So anyway, all that to say, it was very eye-opening to be in that environment and to see those different organizations, and to kind of have that realization that we're not always the kindest to each other. And I feel like we and the folks that were at that roundtable table with us are really coming around to that mindset of we're not playing it anymore. There is so much work to be done, whether it's in our space or in the space of these other organizations that were present at the conference. There's so much work to be done. We do not have time to sit and deal with the folks who are detracting from the mission. Yeah, for sure. And I think that you're hearing that was kind of a lot of the tone of the conference is there's a lot of distraction out there right now, real and imagined. There are things that are put out into the ether of our country that don't have any real impact at this point, but cause a lot of panic and cause a lot of fear, and are really designed to beat people down. There's things that are real, that are definitely beating people down, funding getting pulled, regulations getting changed that makes it harder for people to do their work. And the real tone of this conference was, and yet the work needs to be done. You are not alone. We're all here together. And this is not new, and we will persevere and get through. So it was a good message, but it was startling a little bit to have that realization of how much pain and trauma has been caused simply from the people who are in this fight with us. And that needs to change. We need to be done with that and move on.
Right. Inaction
is what is desired by some parties. And I'm sad to say, I think some parties in the animal welfare world. I mean, I think that is the more we move, the more agitated some folks get. So to me, it's the movement that's the problem. And we can't apologize for that. We're going to keep moving.
Right. We have to, because that's what's saving animals right now. And that's what's helping people right now.
Yeah.
And I think our listeners, like a lot of rescues and shelters, listen to our podcast and they are so overwhelmed with animals. But I think that lesson can carry on to them too. Like, stop what you're doing right now. Examine what you're doing. If you need to slow intake, of course, open intake shelters can't. But if you're a rescue and you just feel like you don't have enough foster homes and there are too many dogs that are dying in shelters and they need your rescue right now. It is so hard to say, but I'm going to tell you, like, animals are dying every day and it's not easy. I have fostered so many animals, especially animals who aren't the highly adoptable ones. Those are the ones I usually keep forever. But when you live in that constant state of, I'm not doing enough, I can't do enough, I can't save enough, you're burning yourself out. Absolutely. And then that's not helping the animals in the long term.
Fortunately, we don't rely on federal grants to do our work. Folks who have had it literally pulled out from under them while they watched in real time that money getting taken away, money that had been promised, programs that had been started,
staff that were being paid by that funding.
Staff that were being paid, and then the funding is gone midstream, and having to scramble of, do I fire staff? Do I cut programming? The links that people went to not have to terminate their staff and just say, hold on, we're going to get through this. That was moving. We heard from people who have worked their entire lives to build something so good and so beautiful, and now they're at risk of having it all taken away. And it's not, I feel like this is our mission and this is our passion. For some of these folks, it is literally their life. This is my life's work, and they've got so much of their heart and soul into it. And now they're trying to figure out what to do. They're trying to lead organizations. They're trying to be the leader and the hope and the dreamer for their staff. And they're like, how do I do this? How do I get up in the morning and come to work with that face on that says, we're good, guys, we got this. We're making a difference, when I feel like it's all falling down around me. So it was heavy, but it was more uplifting than it was heavy, just to be reminded. But it's not a great situation. And when you tap into all of these organizations who are fighting for funding, and economic uncertainty, which makes donors hold their purses a little bit tighter, which is very warranted. It makes for some uncertain funding. We do the best we can.
And just trying to get people to realize it doesn't have to be zero sum, because that's kind of more for you doesn't mean less for me. And I think too, if we can get those big funders to realize maybe going outside of the box and funding people you don't know will help problem solve faster.
And funding people outside of what you normally do. So like we've said before, a lot of the funders in the animal welfare space are looking for shelters, rescues, veterinarians, and we're none of those, but we're trying to keep pets from being a burden on shelters, rescues, and veterinarians. So maybe if we can get some of these funders, say, we understand this is usually what you fund. Can we interest you in helping to support some of the work that we are doing?
The upstream work.
The upstream work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard, but it sounded so doom and gloom, but like we both walked away feeling very fulfilled. The speakers were phenomenal. What was the title of the one speaker? He was an astrobiofuturist or something.
I think you got it.
Oh,
Astrobiofuturist? If not, that's close. We don't have his stuff here to refer to. But I decided, like, one, I did not know that was a job, and two, I want that job. And it's about looking at nature, excuse me, looking at the patterns in nature and how like it replicates the patterns in systems. And I mean, it's everything. Nature is everything, which I've always known. But yeah, so that was fascinating talk. And there was a little bit of fear after we came back, like, did we like ignore our animal welfare colleagues? Like, should we have spent more time? I was, like I said, kid in a candy store. I wanted to learn about all of these groups and what they do and where they work and the populations they serve. That to me was definitely one of the highlights, is getting to meet these people that are doing this work on the ground.
Right. But like it's the intersectionality of it.
Yes.
So they're all working on social justice and Head Start programs and really, really important things. And we came in and we're like, we care about dogs and cats. And at first we felt so deflated. It felt like our work was not as important because other people's work is so much harder, right? And I know our work is hard, but their work it just seemed more important in the moment.
And the stakes feel higher,
right?
When you're talking about food insecurity and homelessness and access to education. The stakes feel a lot higher in that work.
Right. But everybody in those spaces has a pet. You know, whether you're a teacher working a Head Start program, you likely have a dog or a cat that you go home to at the end of the day. The people who are fighting social justice issues, that's the same thing. So we are all connected. It's that idea that we separate ourselves. We put ourselves in boxes and pretend that we don't have anything in common, but we do. And so trying to get other groups to also realize animals are keeping families together sometimes will maybe help people understand how important and deep our work is.
Yeah, I got to talk with someone who runs a nonprofit whose focus is keeping pets with their houseless owners, which is an amazing mission as well. So yeah, when we feel like, oh, we're saving dogs, it is important work, and I think even as we were kind of minimizing it, I think the folks around us did a really good job of being like, don't minimize that.
I sense we're wrapping this episode up-ish. We can still keep talking, but we met two really incredible people on this trip that kind of showed us why we are doing this work and why trying to reach a new audience matters. And so we're going to do a whole episode just on the conversations we had with them and what we learned from them, because we've siloed ourselves. And I didn't realize we did, but our industry has really siloed itself. And it's not helping the animals. It's really not.
Right. Yeah. And it really was. We would have these conversations and we'd look at each other like, did that just happen? Did we just have that conversation? Like, what is this exactly what we've been talking about? And one of those was sparked, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, by
your shirt.
My shirt?
Yes.
So we've said before, when we wear our Bailing Out Benji merchandise out in public, it always starts conversations. And I think there were two airport conversations that got started. One was the one we're going to talk about. And then another one, I was walking away. And as I was walking away, I heard somebody say, oh, what does her shirt say? And I thought, oh boy, there goes Mindy. Like, that person did not know what they were getting themselves into. They're going to hear about it now.
But I also think that's, like you said it, like our logo is cute. Like it prompts people to ask. Everyone kind of understands who the national groups are, right? So like when you see that logo, you're like, yeah, I also see those commercials and donate. But when it's just a random dog and they're not used to seeing us, it does prompt. And with the big end puppy mills, they ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So.
And we met somebody in Chicago who was like, oh yeah, I know Bailing Out Benji.
Yeah.
Like, Yay, love that.
I know, it was a weird.
We have a wealth of airport stories. Maybe that'll be a side episode at some point.
That'll be
so
how we
much time in
start our-
airports.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, we were awake for over 30 hours trying to just get home from this conference. So the fact that we even want to talk about this conference is great.
We spent the
We're
night in
at-
O'Hare and didn't even get to see Beyonce.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
No. We also spent the night in baggage claim at O'Hare.
Yeah, not even the comfy part of
the
O'Hare.
airport.
We were in the 50-degree baggage claim area.
Yeah, it was also
Memories were made.
Memories were made. But honestly, it was so fun to be there with you. Neither of us, everybody in the airport, we weren't mad.
No.
There was nothing we could do. There were no hotels. There were no lifts. I mean, you could get lifts, but to nowhere. And there were no car rentals that could get us home. So aggravatingly, being 5 hours from home and not being able to drive there was tough. But we were all so in good spirits, as good as you could be.
Yep.
But that fostered a lot of time for conversation.
It did. It was like one extended staff meeting that got a little slap happy about 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was good. So, but anyway, do you have anything else you want to add into this?
I think we've said a lot, and we will we'll talk more when we get to telling the stories of the folks that we interacted with. So this is kind of a to be continued episode.
Yeah, but one thing we're adding new into this episode is our little like pop-up videos. Oh, yeah. We're not sure what we're going to call them yet. I don't know if we'll have a name by the time this airs.
It might be a different name every episode.
It might be. It doesn't even need a name. We are not sure. But what we've decided is that the episodes that it's just me and Kristen, we're going to have Jelaine and Alexis pop on. Just a fun little volunteer minute or research minute.
She could go an hour.
She could go for an hour.
Yeah.
She would.
And we would enjoy it.
Yeah, we would just listen. But yeah, so you're going to hear from both Jelaine and Alexis this episode and then going forward every episode.
Welcome to this week's volunteer update. We're really excited because the warm weather's coming in, and that means we get to do so many more outdoor events. We love all events, but when we can be outside, chef's kiss. So we have a lot of exciting events coming up across the country. We have a lot of teams that will be at farmers markets this summer, pride festivals, outdoor walks, all fun stuff like that. Here's some exciting news. Our annual Bark After Dark Gala is coming up on September 20th. It'll be at Mainframe Studios in Des Moines, Iowa. We are so excited to be at this new location and see all the new opportunities that present themselves. We are still looking for sponsors of the event, so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can absolutely reach out. Tickets are going on sale this week. We hope to see you there.
Hi all, I am just popping in today with a research update. Given a previous episode where we talked about data doesn't have an agenda, I just wanted to bring it back to that conversation and kind of talk about what that means for us as an organization and how we choose to represent our data and speak about our data. So when we say like data doesn't have agenda, we say that because this is a place that we've evolved to. In the past, we haven't been as careful about how we chose to represent our data, and so now we really want to be pretty intentional about how we're speaking about that data and make sure that it is truthfully and honestly being represented. And a great example of this is kind of like how we choose to represent our puppy import data. So we track the puppy sales of dogs into pet stores. And so when we do that, we get these numbers that are like, oh, New York imported 10,000 puppies to puppy selling pet stores in their state. And how this data could be used is we could say that, hey, it was 10,000 puppy mill puppies imported into New York to their puppy selling pet stores. But to us, that's not an honest representation, because how we would actually speak about that data would be, oh, there are 10,000 puppies imported into New York pet stores, and of those 10,000, we can tell you this percentage was unlicensed breeders, this percentage was licensed breeders, and then of those licensed breeders, how many of them have violations? What percentage of them have those violations? Which ones are concerning ones? And so we feel that that's more of an accurate representation of the data than just saying, hey, it's 10,000 puppy mill puppies, because we don't honestly know that it's 10,000 puppies from puppy mills. They could be regular breeders, commercial breeders that haven't had a problematic history. And yes, there could be puppy mills in there, but we can't exactly pinpoint that number, and so how we choose to represent that data is to break it down into our stats about unlicensed, licensed, and violation history. So we just want to acknowledge that we're trying to improve upon how we are representing this data, and we are highly encouraging people to also think about how they phrase this data and how they talk about it, because we really want to be as honest and transparent, because that's how we create safe spaces to talk about this and to grow and actually focus on the issues of today, that puppy mill problem, and how can we target it honestly and with proper data. Thanks for popping into this research update with me. I hope you found it valuable, and I hope that it kind of sparks a little bit of thinking on how we talk about data going forward.
So as always, check out our show notes for a link to donate. We talked a little bit about funding struggles for nonprofits. So yeah, that's where we are. That's where a lot of folks are. But we appreciate every donation. Honestly, most of our donations are very small dollars. We appreciate every little bit of help we can get. And then also just keep an eye out for news about our gala upcoming in September. We'll have ticket sales. We have sponsorship opportunities happening right now. So those are really the big fundraisers we have going on right now.
Well, thank you for sitting with us for another week, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.